Yeah. Sometimes you go through self-doubt, but that's what grace is for, isn't it? Yeah.
So lads, how do we as men expose ourselves to lust?
Good question.
Big question.
It's a big question.
I mean, it's an everyday thing in terms of you see it on billboards, it's in music, it's in what you read. It's like the whole world is like set up to, especially for guys, to like trap us with this kind of image of lust and the flesh and all of those things. So it's something that
I don't know about you guys, but there's been situations where I know I shouldn't be in a situation, but I'll put myself in a situation. And I know I shouldn't be, but it's a case where you just, I don't know, you're playing around with the idea of...
You're kind of almost kind of toiling with the idea.
Yeah.
And, you can almost kind of post-rationalizing, like...
Yeah.
I remember a conversation we were having about putting your faith in the flesh and stuff. Like, sometimes we kind of tend to do that, and actually we feel like, I'm just going to have a little bite of that. It's not really going to hurt, but at the same time, before you know it, you end up eating an entire pie.
I feel like, especially sometimes as Christians, we forget about the grace of God, and we say that we can handle it. You know what I'm saying? Then when that situation comes, and your body just takes over,
and you
fall, then you start saying scripture like, the spirit was willing, but my flesh is weak. Do you know what I mean? So you hear a lot of those situations, but just confidence in the flesh. It's an example of how we expose ourselves to lust.
But the question that you asked was what was the question again? You said,
how do we expose ourselves to as men?
I know you put yourself in a situation. You said that So for some people,
because what you think, I think I'm strong enough to handle it.
Is that why you put yourself in a situation?
Yeah.
Okay. But then for some people, they don't put themselves in a situation because they think they're strong enough. Some people are just, they can't help it. So for some people that can't help it, how do you describe how they can deal with exposure?
Well, it depends where they're at, I guess, spiritually, I guess. I feel like if you can't help it, but at the same time, are you prepared to sort of fight? Because, it's a battle at the end of the day, really, isn't it? Like, Christ says, who is going to kind of almost, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but, are you going to enter a strong man's house without binding it? Do you know what I mean? So it's a case of, you have to sort of be aware of the spiritual and the sort of mental battle you're facing in terms of the loss. And, if you're at a position where, you're struggling in certain situations and certain, physical, loss and whatever, and you're constantly putting yourself in that situation, then you're not really helping yourself. But when you know that, yes, these are my weaknesses, at the same time, I can't help when these situations happen, I'm sure you're going to try as much as you can. But that goes even deeper into where you're at spiritually. Like, if you're out spiritually, like, okay, what, God, please help me, give me the strength. But if you're like, God's grace is good, but, I'll try, but if I fail, God is still merciful anyway. Do you know what I mean? So it's, do you understand?
Yeah, I also think what we watch, if we don't protect our gateways, what we listen to, what we watch, then we can potentially just let things or lust, just creep in and take hold of us. Exactly. So I feel that's another way that we as men, we expose ourselves to it without intentionally knowing that we are. That makes sense.
That's a good one, because like a lot of the times, like I watch TV now. My wife, she's very much like, she can't even watch like someone being punched or anything like that. So if I want to watch a film and it's like a horror film or a thriller or something like that, she always gives me like this guilt treatment and be like, you have to protect your gates and this and that. I don't want this in my house and I'm just like, I'm trying to enjoy the film. Go back upstairs.
But that's the thing, because for me sometimes, when the trailer just hits you and you're like, I want to watch that, and or sometimes you can't even help it. You could be watching a movie, obviously with a group of guys or whatever, you go out with your missus or whatever, and then a scene comes on. You're not exactly going to be like, you're going to be watching it.
Nah, bro, you can't go like that.
Yeah,
for real. Like, honestly, like, I've been in situations where I've had to look away. like in certain scenes, because I think it's all also about understanding your parameters. Like we all have different thresholds, right?
Do you guys feel like we should? Because even in the Bible it says, even if you look at a woman with lust, like we're already explaining the sin. And if we're looking at that woman doing whatever she's doing, it's already in our minds. Like, so should we even, maybe we should do what you're doing?
No, I'm saying like I'm doing it all the time on purpose. Sometimes. No, I mean like for real though. Like I feel like, you know, certain movies, you know that there are going to be certain contents in there. But you know, let's say for example, you didn't realize this was going to happen, and boom, all of a sudden it appeared on TV. You know that okay, this is probably going to trigger thoughts and minds and stuff like that. You don't want that. So the best thing to do, you know, it's very easy said than done. But you know, what you want to do is, you know, avert yourself and actually gonna guard your forward it, or you know, look away, or you know, maybe cover you, maybe not cover your ears, but you know, try to prevent that. Because I believe that, you know, it will cost you a lot more in the future than, you know, 5 minutes of watching.
And I think one of the key things is that, you know, you show like self-restraint in that, and it must start from like a young age, because you remember we're basically like reflections of our younger selves. And so if you have those kind of the boundaries in place, and you're able to use the self-control when you're younger, then when you're older now, it's a lot easier than if you're younger and you get into certain habits.
I counter that.
I don't necessarily think it's a lot easier when you're older. I actually think it's harder as you get older.
No, but it's only harder because you formed this habit, and now you're bigger. So now you want to say, okay, well, I know a bit more about my walk and all that stuff, so I'm going to try and be good now. But you're trying to be good, but that's after being bad 10 years. Do you understand? So it's a lot harder to do. Whereas if you teach a child in the way they should go and they will never depart, then if you put those kind of boundaries in place and all those things, then it's easier for them to then use those, you know, the boundaries when you're older.
Yeah, I guess that's key, putting boundaries in place.
But then bear this in mind, you're a teenager now, and obviously there's a lot of things that's happening with your body, and there's sometimes you can't even control it. So you're saying, okay, because we have to go back in time, to when we were teenagers.
Puberty.
You know, way back. So exactly. So it's like, if you're talking about puberty, it's very easy for someone to, because the way our body is inclined to just kind of take it in, especially whatever's around us. So I respect the part where you guys are saying you have to put things in place, but when you start doing that and you start doing it from a young age and it becomes a habit, it's like you're dependent on yourself, and then that's when it's very easy to be like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna trust myself, I can go out with this girl.
That's a good
so
point
it's like,
as well.
I feel like the main thing is, like, I think we were discussing about this earlier, about the renewal of the mind. And renewal of the mind is not just reading the word. Again, it's things like putting things in place, but then reading the word, it backs what God is saying. So I think that's very important.
I guess because lust is a strong sexual desire, just what I'm saying. So it's anything that kind of, you know, triggers it. So it might be different for you, it might be different for me. Do you see what I'm saying? So as individuals, we have to be mature enough to identify.
That's the key word.
Identify it, and then be bold enough to put, you know, boundaries inside. So for an example, just being alone with a female. Just what I'm saying. Some of us will be like, you know what, I like her, but it's not that deep. Do you know what I mean? But if she then puts it on you, and then you put yourself in that situation. Do you know what I mean? Scripture tells us to take heed lest you fall. Do you see what I'm saying? So what would you say to a guy who, you know, is dating a girl and, you know, she's not, let's say, that strong in her faith, and, you know, like...
But what about the guy? What about if the guy's not
strong? Or the other way around, or the other way around.
And she's strong.
And she's strong, and he's not too strong.
It won't work.
It won't work.
Nah, because...
No, well, you have to get strong.
Yeah,
but you can get strong together though.
One of them's gonna fall. One of them's gonna fall.
I guess two can't agree.
Yeah, exactly.
Two can't walk together unless they agree.
Exactly. They gotta be on the same page.
But I guess you could be trying. You could encourage one another, and you know you can grow with one another, because there's an element of growth.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be one of two situations. It's either they're gonna now wanna take their walk seriously because of you. or you're gonna now decide
They
to
wanna bring you
compromise.
down,
Yeah, you're gonna
to their
compromise. Think,
level.
oh, okay, cool. Let's do something small, and then something small might plant
Turn
that
into
seed
something
into
big, yeah.
something big.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But that's why it's important. That sorry to cut you off. That's why it's very important that when you're in a relationship,
See the lost there?
that's your flesh.
Carry on, bro. Carry on, bro.
That's why it's important. Yeah. When you're in a relationship, a relationship is not something that you can just play with. Like you must have some form of understanding of who you are as a person, and so much your partner. So if there's a little, I don't know, if there's a gap missing, then you're bound to get things like someone's falling or that's bound to happen. So I think the best thing is that, because we're talking about lust, yeah, and we're talking about relationships, those are two different conversations. And I feel like with lust, if you're talking about lust, if you focus on it, for me the main thing is understanding what lust actually is and understanding how it will affect you. I think until you understand that, you can say whatever you want to say, you're going to continue the same way.
Yeah, regardless if you're in a relationship or
regardless.
Yeah.
So we can talk about parameters, we can talk about, like renewing the mind. If you don't understand, and for me that's what it was. I was going to church every Sunday, going Bible study, like I was doing everything. And for me, I didn't understand because first of all we talked about peer pressure. I was used to that environment where everyone was talking about it all the time. So I think this is normal. Like what are these lot talking about? Like, they got something going on over there. Like, that's not life. So for me, I had to kind of take a step back and be like, you know what? Let me actually understand what this is all about. And once I understood that, it becomes easy for you to be stronger because you understand it now. You can now explain it. Not the one that a girl puts on you. Why are you being celibate? Why do you want to touch me? You're like, I don't know. Because you don't understand it. You can't tell her. So I think the main thing is understanding what lust is and the effects it has on you.
You know, but sometimes it's just. I get that, and I totally agree with that. I'm not even going to try to counter that.
Are you my friend now?
So for an example, I think sometimes when we're bored as guys, we can easily put ourselves in certain situations. So like, see the whole story with David and
Bathsheba.
That's it. Like it says that in the period when kings went out, you see what I'm saying? David sent every man to war, like all the army leaders or whatever it was. He sent them all to war, and he didn't go. Do you know what I mean? Then I'm guessing he must have been bored because he was on top of the roof and he was walking around. Do you know what I'm saying? And then he saw someone who was, I don't know, I can't remember what she was doing. She was bathing.
She was having a bath.
Yeah, and he then saw her and then he lusted after her. Do you see what I'm saying? It came out because he was probably just bored. He didn't have nothing to do. He sent everyone out when he should have gone to war. So sometimes being bored can just put us in that situation. You don't necessarily plan to be in that situation, but you can be bored and just be like, hey, what are you doing?
Just go through your phone.
What about if it's premeditated? Like, I can say, David, the reason why he sent all the soldiers out because he had a ulterior motive, and so he wanted to get with Bathsheba.
Well, he didn't see her at that time.
So he didn't see her
at that time.
Okay, forget David then. I'm just talking from my perspective.
Say that.
Say your chest.
Say your chest.
Right. What about if you literally, you know what you're doing, like you know it's wrong, but at the same time, you still have the feelings of pursuing and you end up doing it anyway.
Yeah, but that's depending on where you are, like with your walk.
But the thing is, like, if you're, I don't want to say strong, but you know that this is displeasing to God, right? And you know that this is wrong, this is sin, okay? But still, actively, knowingly, you still do it.
Yeah. Then what?
How do you deal with that? What advice would you have for a guy out there that is a Christian that loves God, but at the same time is still struggling with it and is still doing these things? Willingly.
Can I just interject? Yeah, he's cut me off once, so...
You cut him off twice now, though, bro.
No, one else.
But I feel like, it's by the Spirit. It's not by mind. It's not by power, but by the Spirit. You just have to rely on the Spirit of God because the Spirit of God would teach you. Because for me, for an example, I think the hardest thing I've ever done in my life is trying to be serious in this area of my life. Just what I'm saying, it's the hardest thing I've ever done, and a lot of it is just relying on the Spirit of God. It's not that I'm saying I'm perfect. There's certain times I do certain things, and the guilt comes in. But at the same time, I let the Holy Spirit convict me. Do you see what I'm saying? I let the Holy Spirit teach me, like, you know what, Tyler, next time pay attention to this, pay attention to that. So sometimes it's all about just relying on just trusting on the Holy Spirit, because it's not, especially in the area of lust, it's not by might, it's not by power, man. It's simply by the Spirit, honestly.
But it was going back to what you were saying about, like, it's a constant, like, daily renewal of your mind, because until the guy wants to actually do it, to make the turnaround, to please God, to not do it, then he's not going to do it. So he'll still call her up, link up, and still come to church on a Sunday. Until he gets that kind of like turnaround point where it's like, you know what?
Lighting the bulb moment, right?
Like, I've got to do it. I mean, it's about getting there.
It's a difficult thing.
It is a difficult thing.
But at the same time, God can't be mocked. So the Bible says that He searches the heart. So you can be like going through your situation and be like, you know what, I want to change. If you really don't want to change, you're not deceiving God. You're deceiving yourself. So when God sees that it's in your heart that you actually want to change, He'll put things there to assist you. That's who He is. He's love. So He's not gonna do things to intentionally hurt you. And for me anyway, let me speak from my experience. What I've realized is that sometimes when I go through challenges, because I used to think, oh, right, why am I going through this? Is that thing where God doesn't care about me? But I've come to realize that it's like I won't say training, but it's like that's how I'm going to grow. So I have to go through all these things to grow. So sometimes you're battling lust, you're finding it difficult to speak to somebody. It may be a case where you just need to grow in that situation, and that season you need to grow there and you need to go through it. But at the same time, you can't give up. Like, I feel like as human beings, when we feel like we've sinned, that the first thing is to be harsh on ourselves. And I feel
guilt.
exactly, with guilt. And guilt can be a dangerous thing, because then that will make you keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So if you understand the love God has for you, and you understand that, okay, I'm not going to get over this overnight, but I'm going to continue to do this until I get it right, then that's it. And God is looking at that heart, and that's who He's looking for.
Well, you know what? I actually have a question for you guys that obviously married now, or on your way to getting married. Do you guys feel that it's a lot harder, especially when you obviously propose to your missus, and then you're on that journey? Because it's easy to just be complacent and be like, you know what, I'm going to marry her anyway, and just give in to those lustful desires.
Yeah, I think it's definitely harder once you have a partner and you're obviously looking to sort of get married, because you're at a place where by God's grace the marriage will happen, but mentally you're thinking, we're practically gonna commit to each other anyway. Why not just let this one slide? You almost kind of let your guard down a little bit, and you know that this is gonna happen in the future. So what's to stop it happening now? Do you know what I mean? So it's harder because,
but it's worth. I say it's worth the wait. Because this is what God intended it for in the institution of marriage. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's well worth the wait to do it at the right time.
I've got a question. You go. Thank you. For you that you've been married for a couple of years now, number of years. Yeah. Does it ever get hard with other women? Obviously,
Finish that sentence.
You better stop recording. That's the way I'm trying to articulate it the right way.
Post marriage, does lust happen post marriage?
That's it. Yeah.
Does lust happen?
Do you
post marriage? Yes.
Lust after other women, whilst not your wife, but after women?
Yeah, and if so, how do you do it?
Well, we're men, we're human, we fall. If you're watching like a music video and something comes up unexpected, and you're like, oh my gosh, like
expected,
unexpected, and you're like, damn, and it might be a couple of seconds, you're like, oh wow, and then you're like, then I've trained myself, that all the lust and everything I know is directed to one woman. So as soon as I feel that come up, like, I should be looking at this. Babes, where are you? Come quickly.
But what about
I need you.
What about, okay, let's take away the whole TV and social media. What about when it's right in front of you, you see a girl walking towards you. I know as guys, a girl's walking towards you, you already know she's got shape. Do you know what I mean?
What kind of shape, Tara?
You already know she's got
Come on, elaborate.
What, am I the only one? Hey, pray for me. Nah, but honestly, like, you know she's got shape. So what do you do? Because I know for myself, like, there's certain times you try it, you're like, okay, this girl's got shape, but you force yourself not to look back.
I can relate. I'm not lie to you.
It's annoying. That's something across the road. I'm like,
I'm telling you. Or sometimes you try to close your eyes and your
at
eyes
your
are still.
Look at your phone. Stare at your phone like you're reading the Bible.
So what do you do?
But the beautiful thing is that us guys, by God's grace, are at that position and stage where we can identify and be like, hold on a minute, and then now you can actually like come out of your body and look down and say like, okay,
awareness.
Okay, yeah, it's the awareness. Like, okay, what do I need to do? Because I need to make sure I have my guards up and everything else. And that's it, because as I said, we can't walk around with blinkers on like all the time and we'll be bumping into things and everything else. So it's like one of the things, as I said, it's a mind thing. So as soon as you kind of like identify and be like, oh, she has shape, then you be like, whew, let me keep my eyes in her eyes. Yeah. Like, hi, how are you? Yeah, good. God bless you.
Trust is not easy, man. Because I went Portugal with the lads last year.
Portugal, yeah. You enjoyed it?
But can you speak? Can you speak any?
He learned.
They told him about that, bro.
Just holiday, man. Just holiday. And like, sometimes you just, you just have to say, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Because it's not easy. It's not.
Yeah,
it's what I'm saying. So it's like,
It's sweaty,
French, bro.
But do you get what I'm saying? It's like, sometimes it's not easy, man.
What would I say to someone dealing with lust? I'd say just bear in mind the worth of women as well. We're supposed to look after them, nurture them. They're not supposed to be just sex objects for us to just use and abuse and then just lash off. We're supposed to be there for them and protect them as well as that. So just bearing in mind that when you're having those sexual desires, you've got to bear in mind that this is another human being that you're supposed to look after as well. I don't think it ever gets easier. I just think you just learn how to deal with it better.
Yeah.
As you go.
Strategies.
I think as long as we're still in this flesh, it's never gonna get easier because at the end of the day we're still flesh. It's still an ongoing battle between the spirit and the flesh, really, isn't it? So you just know how. You just need to know how to.
Now, I'm glad he said that because sometimes a lot of us we think Christian people we got it all together. What I'm saying. Yeah. But it's like anyone who's a real follower of Christ knows that it's only by God's grace. And it's the love for God or love for Christ that compels you to put strategies in place to even when you fall to just keep going or just what I'm saying because sometimes the guilt can just get you. It can get you because I don't know about you guys, but it's like sometimes when the guilt just gets hold of you, you feel like
you're not good enough.
You're not good enough.
You don't go to church that Sunday.
I've tried. It's not working.
That's what you don't want to
sin.
That's what you don't want to
get better.
To do.
But it's like for people that are watching, if anyone has sinned or you're thinking about sin or whatever, it's like let's not be ashamed about it. Like it's happened, but there's God's grace, and as long as you apply His word and you follow and you're convicted in your heart, and this is something that you don't want to do, God will give you the strength to overcome it. So don't feel guilty. Don't beat yourself up because that's where the devil wants you to be. So then he can keep pursuing you and keep you down. So,
because I think you mentioned something about lust after post-marriage. Was it you?
Yeah.
I think one thing I'll say that I'm trying to work with is just being open with my wife, and I think that there's a power in confessing. So there's power in just being transparent. I think there's a Bible verse saying,
confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be made whole.
Yeah, and I think that's very true. Because at least that way, if it's out there, she knows what you're dealing with. So it's not a thing where you're praying for it, she's praying for you as well. And there's strength in that.
Would you tell your wife that you're struggling with lust?
For me, I will. If
I think she'll deal with that, all right?
What have you already told her? Or?
That's what I'm dealing with.
How long have you been
I didn't know I was dealing with it. But I'm the kind of person, I'm the kind of person that if I'm dealing with an issue and I know it's not helping me,
you tell her.
I will tell her. I will tell my boys, I will tell someone that's out there. And I've confessed it. You guys know that. I've told you guys. So if I'm in this again, we're in this together. That's how I am. For someone else, they might not do it. But for me, I feel so much better letting it out there. Definitely. So I don't have to be someone else.
I don't know why.
My dirt.
I don't know why sometimes we don't feel easy just to
Yeah,
confess.
man.
Because with me, I've got my mentors in place. If I do something, that's got me, bro, I'm talking to my mentors,
Yeah.
talking to my friend. I'm even confessing to God.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, listen.
Especially because most of us are going through that same type of situation. So why
Or someone's been through it and they know they can tell you how they got out of it. So it's like there's no shame in it, man. Like but you have to be wise with who you need to have someone that's accountable for you. Because you can't just be going out there and telling someone they're like, alright, and then some people might even encourage you to do the same thing you're doing. So it's like you
left the house,
like,
you better go back.
Is that what you're doing? I'm like, hey, how did it feel? Like you don't want to be. Listen,
PG, man.
There's certain, but my thing is just be careful you speak to.
What you just said about being vulnerable with your wife about that aspect of your life, I think it's quite powerful because I don't feel like maybe not a lot of women will be able to sort of handle that because obviously the loss you immediately think, oh no, well you're looking at another woman, but it's not that it's actually a struggle that you're dealing with. So I feel like also it's a case of praying for the other partners can understand that this is not just about me looking because it's just actually a struggle.
Yeah,
that
I'm
actually
dealing with it and I'm going through.
I can actually, because
I remember there was a pastor that I was speaking just before you go. There's a pastor that I was speaking about, and he was like, his wife covers him.
Wow.
Because he's told his wife about his issue. If his wife sees that weakness in front of him, she will cover him.
Wow.
So she could distract him, she could take him away. And I thought that was so powerful. Like, if two of you know what the struggle is, and it's vice versa. If you know your wife's weakness, don't just be there and know it. You better try and work to help her, overcome that weakness. And it's because for me, I've come to understand that marriage is a partnership. So you're both pushing each other to death. You'll never get to a level where push you to the max, to the best you can be. You're still doing it until death.
I don't know if
that's how I feel.
I don't know if you touched on it, but as a married man or even in a relationship, do you think it's possible to even have female friends at that point?
I think it is possible to have female friends, but we talked about parameters.
You can't put a boundary in place.
You can't be like, you gotta have curfews and you gotta invite over to the house where the missus is there and we eat together. You know what I mean? Love fellowship, all of that. Big titles for it. But I think you were telling me about this. I think this was before marriage. I was like, I got bare friends like girls, and I was like, but I think I've come to learn that he's got to have parameters.
You have to put that in place.
So another thing we haven't touched on is pornography. You know what I mean? So when we talk about lust, especially pornography could be any age. I don't want to say young people because I don't think that's the case all the time. But pornography, how because again, that's the body. You're getting older, your body's feeling a certain type of way. For some males, you're active, so you just have energy. So how did we deal with pornography? Or did we ever face pornography?
The P word.
I think everyone's most people face pornography.
I'm just gonna put it out there. I had my battle with pornography years ago before I actually got properly saved. It was a struggle, and it wasn't until I actually got saved, and it was a case where I'd watch it pre-saved, and I'd be like, oh God, please forgive me, but it was just I just wanted to satisfy the flesh anyway. But there was an understanding of what it did. It wasn't until I actually got saved and I just had a little prayer, God, it would be a shame for me to go back to this, and by God's grace, I never went back ever, and it's just by His grace. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything, but pornography is real, and people do suffer with it, men and women. But it's
an addiction, isn't it?
It's an addiction, I can't say these are the ways for you to do it. It's just a case of let's go to God. These are my struggles.
Because I feel sometimes a lot of people are scared to actually give it to God. Whereas God He's not going to judge you. He's saying, come to me.
Yeah, but why do you think they're scared to give it to God?
Because people have the wrong perception of God.
Okay.
Just what I'm saying. So because they think, God is going to judge, like Adam and Eve, as soon as they sinned, the first thing they done was they started to hide from God. Just what I'm saying. What would happen if, Adam was like, God, here I am, and he started confessing? We don't know what would happen. But at the same time, I just feel that, we need to feel comfortable going to God. He says, come boldly before the throne of grace.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like, I know it's a difficult thing. Do you see what I'm saying? Because you're like, oh, how's God? He loves me so much, and I've just done this, and you run away. But I just feel like you're saying, you just prayed and just taking it to God. And just say, God, help me with this. Do you see what I'm saying? Cause
and also, with praying, there's also a personal responsibility on you as well. Like as we were talking about earlier about, your personal, your parameters, accountability, like if you know that maybe around certain time you should probably not be on your laptop, then dead it.
Yeah.
If you know that certain TV channels you should probably watch at a certain time, then don't.
Dead
If
it.
you know that certain shows that probably doesn't have pornography in it but could start to stimulate your mind, and you start looking for it after, then again, be honest with yourself and dead it. Do you know what I mean? So it's about really, really being honest and being strict with yourself, and just be real, like, because at the end of the day, as you said, you can't fool God. Like,
He sees your heart.
He sees your heart. So we just have to be like completely very honest and just kind of open with ourselves. Like, it's a journey that everyone's going through. Like, some people are dealing with it, some people aren't. Some people are dealing with different kind of thing. We all are.
Yeah.
So it's just a journey, and by God's grace, He will see us through.
Amen.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
And also it's the fact that, if you look at the effects that it has, like when you watch it, it's very unhealthy, because it's not what love is. It's not what sex is.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who's watching it all the time, that's not real life. There's lights, there's cameras, there's this and that. They're doing something to get a particular goal. But in real life, it's not meant to be like that. So when you're watching this, you have a learnt behaviour of something that is perverting.
It warps your idea
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what God should be. I think,
had for it to be.
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Someone said this, like, what pornography does is basically. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember what he said exactly.
Don't interrupt me and then forget.
Sorry.
Stick it on him.
He said that pornography is basically it's what it does is it basically kind of like gives you this feelings and this ideas that no human being can actually ever satisfy, because everything is staged. Like, for example, when you're married, you expected your wife or your husband to be able to sort of do what you can see in pornography, and the fact that the reality is you're never gonna get that.
Yeah.
Because it's not real. It's just the sexual perversion that has been put into your head. And when I was talking about consequences earlier, that could lead to consequences in your marriage where you feel like, okay, I'm not really getting satisfied in this area because my husband isn't really doing that, or my wife isn't really doing that.
And where do you get that from?
Yeah,
It's from pornography.
Yeah,
So-
you start looking outside of marriage.
Yeah. So it's deep. Sex is deep. Like, boy, we just have to be very mindful of the power of sex.
And be mindful that it's all around us.
It's all around us.
Like in billboards and as in the social media, on music channels, even the music glorifies it.
Yeah.
Like if a guy has like 10 girls, then he's the don. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be mindful of what you're feeding yourself and what it is.
And love is not just about sex. I remember I had that understanding that, love is just about sex. I remember I was in the marriage counselling, and they were like, love making actually starts from when you wake up and you're just looking after your woman.
It starts in the mind.
Like that's when I heard that, I was like, what?
Yeah.
The effects it has on a woman, they were talking about the effects. I was like,
Let me go
make
get
love
some-
to my get married. So for me, it's like
Breakfast and bed.
exactly like thing like that. Like sex is not just like, that's not love. Like just full on sex. Like this, it's more to it than that.
It's an
I feel like
expression, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
Rather
Exactly.
than what it is. It's an entirety.
It's dope.
Yeah.
I think it's important to stress that sex was created by God, and it's the lust for sex or sex outside of marriage that is sin. God has put those sexual desires in us, and he's made it pleasurable for us, but at the same time we can't get carried away with that, and we should know that the lust for it is the sin itself, and that's what is bad for us. But God created those sexual desires, those urges, and obviously in the context of marriage. So like, just summarizing, what advice would you guys give, just in general, or how do we as men deal with
all these things? I know we've already touched on,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a few things of how to deal with it, but you know, just as a summary, how would we deal with these things?
I think for me, one thing I'll always do is just find someone that I'm accountable to. It doesn't have to be a mentor. It could be a brother that you're close with, that you know are in the same faith, you're the same believer. Or it could just be someone that you feel you can talk to and you trust their judgment. You know, find someone that you can open up to and you can just be honest. I think from when you start doing that, there's power in it. And a second thing for me is just having people that you pray with.
Absolutely.
You know, there's power in coming together and praying for whatever is your whatever situation you're in, or just in general. You know, the Bible talks about when one or two are gathered, you know, Christ is there in our midst. You know, so coming together and praying, Christ is hearing us. Not saying that Christ won't hear you when you're just by yourself, but there's power in unity. You know, and I think that's very important.
I think for me, it's having brothers like yourselves, you know, that I'm walking with, you know, that's not going to judge me, you know, but you know, you be there to encourage me. Like, I know there's sometimes that, you know, I've called Dami, certain times I've called Manny, you know, and yourselves, do you know what I mean, and just spoken about things, you know, even my mentors, sometimes I'll talk to my mentors. I'm not scared, basically, to confess, you know, certain things, just what I'm saying, because it's a journey that I'm on, and just, you know, an advice that I'll give is don't be scared to have, you know, your brothers who are going to be with you, who are going to walk with you in this journey, kind of thing.
I think for me it's more about being honest with yourself, like knowing yourself, knowing your weaknesses, and just being brutally honest with, you know, what they are, and taking your weaknesses to God, and just by His grace He will give you that strength to kind of like strengthen you when you fall, because you will do. At the same time, you know, have that courage to kind of stand and get yourself back up and keep fighting the race. But again, knowing your weaknesses and setting, you know, boundaries. I can't emphasize that enough, because it's a discipline, isn't it? And as Christians, we're called disciples because, you know, there's certain disciplines we need to kind of put in place. Spiritual, mental, as well as physical discipline. So I think like dealing with sex is obviously spiritual and physical, and actually mental discipline as well, all together. So
when you cover by your own face, but I'm still, I know it's kinda hard, but I'm still, but I'm still, never switch gears, can't do this on my own, so far gone when I get into the zone. Still, the doubts do roam, cause people out here make me feel like I'm wrong. Still, I feel like I'm home, I put in this work, I'm trying to make it known. Couple years back, the passion was born.